The Whispers of the Pines. Part 1, The Invitation. Evelyn had always been drawn to the forest. Its towering trees, endless trails, and the murmur of the wind through the branches called to something deep inside her. A sense of calm mixed with a strange thrill. For years, she had ventured into the woods behind her childhood home, finding peace in its depths. But as she grew older, the allure of the forest became more unsettling, as though it harbored secrets too dark to be discovered. It was on one crisp autumn afternoon, with the wind whispering through the pines and the scent of pine needles heavy in the air, that she received the letter. The envelope was simple, unmarked, and old-fashioned, its edges slightly yellowed as if it had been sitting around for years, waiting for the right moment to arrive. The letter inside was typed, though the words seemed strangely familiar, as if they'd been written in a language she almost recognized. The forest calls for you, Evelyn. Return to where the pines meet the sky. They have been waiting. She stared at the letter, heart racing. The handwriting was unsettlingly familiar, but it was impossible to place. She had no idea who would send her such a cryptic message. But what disturbed her most was the strange sensation of déjà vu, the sense that something was calling her back to the forest, something she had long tried to forget. The forest, the one place she had stayed away from for years. Part 2, A Dark Past. Evelyn remembered the first time she ventured into the woods alone. It had been a late summer evening when she was 12. Her parents, as usual, had told her to stay close, but the dense trees always had a pull on her. So, under the cover of dusk, she slipped away, hoping to find anything that would help her understand the strange feelings she had always experienced when near the forest. It was as though the pines themselves were alive, watching her, waiting. She wandered deeper and deeper, the scent of earth and pine growing stronger until it filled her lungs. The trees seemed to crowd in closer, their branches creaking and whispering in the wind. Every time she tried to turn back, she found herself facing a new trail, a path she had never noticed before. Hours passed, and the sun dipped below the horizon. She was lost. That night, she heard the whispers for the first time. They were faint, at first just the rustling of leaves in the wind, but soon, they became clearer. Words, names, her name, they echoed through the forest, coming from all directions, surrounding her. Evelyn, Evelyn, they breathed. Terrified, she ran. When she finally stumbled out of the forest, drenched in sweat and breathless, she never told anyone about what had happened. She couldn't explain it. How could she? Who would believe that the forest itself had called to her? Years passed, but the whispers never truly stopped. They lingered in the back of her mind, a haunting presence she couldn't shake. The memory of that night faded, but the unease remained. She tried to push it away, to live her life, but the strange pull of the woods had always been there, like a shadow she couldn't escape. Now, the letter had arrived. Part 3, The Return. The journey back to the forest felt strange. The familiar paths had changed, or perhaps it was she who had changed. The trees were taller, the underbrush thicker, the air was colder, and still, the pull was there, stronger than ever, as if the forest itself were waiting for her to return. Evelyn walked along the path, her footsteps crunching against the dry leaves that covered the forest floor. The sky above was a muted gray, casting a soft, eerie light on everything. It was as if the entire world had been muted, the sounds of nature itself hushed, save for the distant, constant whisper of the pines. She wasn't sure how much time had passed when she reached the heart of the forest, the place where she had gotten lost all those years ago. The trees here were ancient, their trunks wide and gnarled, and their roots twisted into strange shapes, as though the forest had grown around them, not the other way around. The air was thick with the scent of damp wood and moss. And then, she heard it again. The whisper. It was faint, but unmistakable. Her name. The wind carried it to her, soft and insistent. Evelyn, Evelyn. Her heart began to race. She looked around, her eyes scanning the trees. She wasn't alone. Someone or something was out there. The path she stood on stretched ahead, dark and winding, leading into the deeper part of the woods. She didn't know what compelled her, but she began walking forward, unable to stop herself. As she ventured deeper, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. She couldn't make out the words, but there was no doubt they were calling to her. She quickened her pace, not sure what she was searching for, only that she had to find it. Suddenly, she stopped. Before her stood a clearing, bathed in a strange, otherworldly light. In the center of the clearing was an ancient stone altar, covered in vines and moss. She had seen this place before. She had seen it in her dreams, in the fading memories of that first night in the woods. It was the same altar she had discovered all those years ago. And standing before it, gazing at her with hollow eyes, was a figure she thought she had long forgotten. Part 4, The Truth Unveiled. The figure was a woman, dressed in tattered robes that seemed to blend with the shadows of the forest. Her hair was long and unkempt, her skin pale and drawn tight over her bones. But what struck Evelyn the most were her eyes, empty, hollow, like two dark voids. "Evelyn," the woman whispered, her voice like the rustling of dry leaves, "you've finally come home." Evelyn took a step back, her breath catching in her throat. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The woman tilted her head, as if amused by Evelyn's fear. "I am the keeper of the forest's secrets, and you, Evelyn, are its heir." The words hung in the air like a weight pressing down on her chest. Her mind raced. "I don't understand. What do you mean, heir?" The woman's hollow eyes locked onto Evelyn's, her gaze piercing. "The pines have called to you for a reason. You are bound to this place, to this forest. Your bloodline has always been tied to it. The whispers, they are the forest's way of guiding you back to your true purpose." Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. Her heart pounded in her chest. "No, I don't belong here. I don't want any part of this." The woman's expression darkened. "It is not a choice, Evelyn. You are one of us now. The forest will always call you home." As the woman stepped closer, the ground beneath Evelyn's feet seemed to shift. The trees around her began to groan and creak, as though they were awakening. The whispers grew louder, turning into a deafening roar. Evelyn stumbled back, her legs shaking. She tried to turn and run, but the forest closed in on her, the trees towering over her, their branches reaching like hands, pulling her in. She heard the woman's voice one last time before the darkness took her. "You cannot escape the pines, Evelyn. They are your fate." Part 5, The Whispers of the Pines. When Evelyn awoke, she was lying on the cold stone altar, the woman nowhere to be seen. The forest was silent now, the whispers replaced by a suffocating stillness. It was as though the woods had closed itself off, sealing her in. The pines stood tall around her, their needles rustling in the wind. But this time, Evelyn could hear something new, something that hadn't been there before. The whispers were no longer just voices in the wind. They were inside her head, echoing in her mind. "Evelyn," they called, familiar and ancient. She stood slowly, her legs unsteady, her thoughts clouded. The forest was no longer just a place of solitude. It was a part of her, and she was part of it. And as she looked out at the trees surrounding her, she realized the truth. The forest had been waiting for her to return, waiting for her to embrace her fate. And now, it was hers to command.